Hey, welcome to Cyber-Conversations, the show where it's okay to agree to disagree. Today, at long last, Vern and I are finishing our discussion on Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Uh, I tried to cut it down, but it still took up 6 episodes. What can I say? There was a lot to talk about with this movie. I did want to let everyone know, as I have been doing for the past 5 episodes, that Vern and I, this was definitely our most divisive movie, and we had so much to say. So I know that it got a little bit heated at times, but I did want to reassure everyone that the purpose of the show remains the same, which is that we agree to disagree. That there is still something to learn from someone who has opposite views. It seems to be more and more prevalent in this day and age that when a person disagrees, they can't just seem to put aside those differences and come to an agreement where they can act civil and still be friends. And it seems to boil down to everything these days. We're talking about something like movies. So there's really no reason for people to be so angry at each other over a difference of opinion when it comes to movies. And that's how I feel about it. And I told that idea to Vern and he liked it. I told it to several other people and they all agreed with me. So that's where the show came from. And the same is true with this one. We got into arguments, but we never resorted to name calling, and he and I are still really good friends, and we've been friends for decades. Um, that said, I'm not going to take up any more time, but I would like you to like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and enjoy the show. But then we get to Leia, and the resistance is kind of like we have no hope now. And then Luke arrives out of
Yeah,
nowhere.
yeah.
He appears.
Well, it took two whole movies, but finally Luke becomes the bastion of hope that we need in a moment of hopelessness. And
Well,
this also
because
plugs into what we were just talking about a while ago about how, it's kind of a Star Wars thing to have the darkest moment come just before the dawn and then somebody shows up and changes the tide.
yeah, and Luke shows up. He gives the dice, Han's dice from the Millennium Falcon to Leia.
Which I
Um,
still don't understand what that's all about. It's so weird to me. I'm glad you mentioned that. It is so I just saw Solo with my son the other day, and it's like afterwards they made such a big deal about those dice that I had to look it up, like what is the deal with that. And it's weird. I mean, come on, we are a massive army of nerds that make up all kinds of stuff about the Star Wars universe. There is no explanation for those stinking dice. Disney clearly made them a central point and never gave us any explanation for why they are a central point. That makes no sense at all. There
I,
is no explanation out there.
I just think it's because they were always hanging on the Millennium Falcon.
The funny thing is, I found out, I admit for the first time, that those dice are actually seen in an obscure moment in an obscure part of the screen in the first movie when
Yeah,
we first see Han in the cockpit. And I think, well, that's really cool. These things deserve a backstory. And so Disney had enough of a fandom to be able to go, yeah, let's do something with that. But then they didn't have enough of a writing staff to be able to go, why does it even be a thing? Oh, they have no background for it. So now we have this poignant moment with Luke, and we know in retrospect he's about to be done. He's about to end his life,
but
and
we
this is
didn't
his
know that.
last. Well, I know, but we know in retrospect that he's
Yeah,
about to end his life. So this is like one of his last actions. And we have no idea what the significance of the dice is. After all these
I
years,
don't think
has
that.
nobody even purported a fan theory?
Oh, I always thought it was just he's saying Han is still here. He's still with us. He's dead, but he's, never truly gone.
This lightsaber belonged to your father. a good friend of mine, someone I tried to train, and like we get to see him, we get to see Anakin wield that lightsaber all the way through at least one and a half of the prequel trilogy. Like, why take a prop that is so well spoken of and so often seen and so meaningfully shot and not give us any indication of why it's special to our characters?
I'm not saying it was done right. I'm just saying I think that was the meaning.
Yeah, and so I'm saying why? I'm saying
Well,
where's the
I'm
backstory? I'm
not saying it
saying,
was done right. It definitely
yeah,
could have been
okay,
done better.
okay.
But
Anyway, moving on to the lightsaber duel. I wanted to make a point about those stinking dice because they're still driving me nuts. Like, why is that a thing that we're supposed to care about, but then we're not told anything about it? That's weird.
yeah, yeah. It could have been done better because we don't know anything about the dice
Well,
other than Han always had them. And
you know
so they
why
are,
I'm reacting emotionally, Josh? Is because it still could be done better.
yeah.
Where is the theory? Go to YouTube right now and type in what's with Hans dice. And you'll find 15 videos that tell you all about the history of Hans dice that say nothing about what they actually mean, where he got them, why they were so important. Nobody knows. Nobody's even put a theory out. It's so strange to me that Disney hasn't, put a lid on that, or that the community has just come along and go, look, Dark Horse Comics said it was this once, and that's what we're going with because Disney's never conflicted with it. So that's what the dice is, as far as we know.
Well,
Nobody has a theory.
I know how much you like AI. So the AI overview
Yep.
says that the dice represent Han's past, his relationship with the Millennium Falcon, and his legacy after his death. Initially a lucky
Oh,
charm, they became a symbol of loss and remembrance, particularly in The Last Jedi, where they are passed from Luke to Leia. The dice
oh,
were originally
his
used by Han
past.
in the Sabacc variant called Corellian Spike, where he famously won the Millennium Falcon from Lando Calrissian.
But we know that that's not true. AI is lying to you because we actually saw in canon in Solo how he won the Millennium Falcon and dice were not involved. Talk about a
Well,
missed opportunity.
yeah.
So then the answer is they were significant to his past. What? Did
Oh,
his
yeah.
mother did his
In
mother give him to?
Solo,
I
yeah,
love the explanation that he used him to win the Millennium Falcon. That makes perfect sense.
yeah.
That should have been
Well,
filmed in Solo.
It says in Solo, a Star Wars story, the dice are shown to have been given to Kira by Han before he left Corellia, and then returned
Yes.
to him later, highlighting
Yes.
their significance in his past.
There is a significant shot of them in the very beginning of the movie and another significant shot of them at the very, very end of the movie. That makes them extremely significant, and we have no idea why. I- what?
Well, they're a symbol of him and Kira
Why?
because he gave them to her when he left Corellia, and she gave them
Why?
back to him to say he's going to come back for her. Remember, they got
Yeah.
separated.
Okay. Yeah, I
It's
just
been a
saw
while
Han.
since I've seen
I just saw
Solo, so
Solo
I got
like just over a week ago, so it's all fresh in my head. I'm
okay.
just
Yeah, I
saying,
haven't.
why? Why those things? What was
Oh,
so
I don't know.
special about those things? Like
Well, did he have
it
anything
boggles my
else?
mind that we don't have a solid explanation.
Well, did he have anything else when he left Corellia? He had nothing to his name, as far as I know.
I don't
He
know.
told
I don't
Kira he'll
know.
be back for her, and he gave her the only thing he had, which were those dice.
Well, maybe the dice were made out of solid gold pressed
They they they
latinum, and
they look like it. Latinum.
yeah, yeah, gold press latinum.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's
He
so
bought them from
simple.
Quarks.
That's why I'm reacting emotionally because it's so simple to be like just
Yeah.
blah. That's the reason why. And as soon as Disney says it, it's done. It's canon. But like they never bother. Like it's just like dangling a carrot in front of us and then not giving us a bite.
Well,
And then it's made worse because we're talking about the Last Jedi, and it's like this is something that Luke passes on, and it's like, well, there's that meaningless thing that keeps getting passed from person to person. We understand that it represents Han, and that has gravity for us, but what are these things? Why are
eh,
they the symbol that everybody keeps passing around?
well, in any case, like I said, it could have been done better, but that's what we
Yeah.
got.
Okay. Anyway, we're commenting on a movie for better or for worse, and so I
Yeah.
wanted to make that comment because,
Yeah.
especially having just seen Solo, like I'm still baffled. Like, why do I not know? I really want to know why those things were so important to Han.
Right. But anyway,
Anyway,
we're at the part where Luke makes his stance makes his stand against Kylo Ren.
yep.
And then
Cool
he
moment.
repeats, yeah, he repeats the line from earlier. Kylo says, "The Resistance is dead, the war is over, and when I kill you, I will have killed the Last Jedi." And
None of that is true.
Luke says, "Amazing. Every word of what you just said was wrong.
Yeah.
The rebellion is reborn today. The war is just beginning, and I will not be the last Jedi." Which
Yeah.
is,
That's cool. I dig it. I dig all of that. Yep.
especially if you think about the fact that Rey did take the Jedi texts with her, a copy of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Okay.
might give that more meaning since, as opposed to before when you thought, the Jedi texts have now been destroyed. There will not be another Jedi Order because they've all been destroyed.
Well,
This is saying, no, it's
just to
not destroyed.
clarify, I don't believe that just because the Jedi books are burned that there aren't going to be more Jedi.
Right.
I don't believe that. I believe that there were Jedi before those books were written, right?
Yeah.
That's who wrote those books. So,
Again, a
that's
supposed,
a
this is still, it hasn't happened yet, but according to Disney, there is a movie being made that takes place like 10,000 years before these movies. And it's the original formation of the Jedi. Was it
neat.
10,000 years or
I
100,000
would
years?
love that. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Maybe it was 100,000. I don't remember, but it's a long time before even Yoda's time. And they said that the movie is going to be about the origin of the Jedi Order. So
I
yeah, I would love
think
to see that.
that, like everything else, something like that could be awesome if it's written well,
Yeah,
and something like that could be silly if it's written poorly.
yeah.
It's probably not a case that I can possibly understate, and that is how much money and talent and amazing art and acting and performance and how much has been thrown into the theaters in the last, I'm just going to say 15, 20 years. That's like, man, did you guys even read the script before you started? You put $340 million into this. You hired 417 people, all of which did a fantastic job on their own, and it was all based on this garbage that you should have thrown away before you even got started. Like that, I cannot overstate how important a good script is compared to a poor script.
Well, for what it's worth, because I don't know this guy, James Mangold is directing a Star Wars movie that will explore the origins of the Jedi Order, set roughly 25,000 years before the Skywalker saga. The film currently has a working title of Star Wars Dawn of the Jedi, and it will delve into the discovery of the Force and the establishment of the Jedi. I don't know anything about who James Mangold is.
I don't either. I don't either. I personally believe, and this is also something I cannot understate, and it feels stupid even saying it because it's so common sense. But I personally believe that if you're going to get somebody to write a story about a fiction, they should be a true fan of that fiction. And
Yeah,
there are many people, I guess, just because they're, it's good for publicity. Obviously, if somebody's like, yeah, I didn't care about this until they hired me, but then I wrote this thing, nobody would be interested about the movie. It would lose its momentum. So that we do hear often that this guy really did grow up reading the comic books, or this guy really, really is, someone who loved it. And and then the movie comes out, and it's like, clearly this person didn't read the comic books.
well,
Obviously, this person didn't love the IP, because you're sitting in a movie theater with 500 other people that truly did love the IP, and you're not hitting the points that we would have hit if we had written it. You're missing the points we would have hit if we had written it. This is not somebody who understood the franchise at all, and it's happened so often. If it was an anomaly, I wouldn't, be commenting on it. But it's
okay.
become the norm nowadays.
Well, here we go. James Mangold, I'm taking a quick look. He's
Yep.
the writer of Copland from
Okay.
1997, Girl
Uh,
Interrupted, Kate and Leopold.
uh, wow.
He directed 310 to Yuma, the remake with Christian Bale
Holy
and
crap.
I did love that movie, but he didn't
Okay.
write it. He didn't write it.
Okay.
He
Yeah.
just
None
directed
of
it.
these so far indicate to me within a football field of
No,
coincidence that this is
no.
the guy that should be writing a Star Wars story.
The Wolverine. Not
Okay.
not X-Men Origins Wolverine, but The Wolverine, which is a
Okay.
better film, but still
I
not
don't think I saw
wonderful.
that one. So okay. Well,
Logan,
at least that's getting closer. Like if
he
when you
was
when
a writer of
you
Logan.
write the Wolverine and Logan, if you did a good job, then at least you're getting closer to a fantastical world like Star
Yeah.
Wars.
Well, he was a writer and director of Logan. I don't know if you
Okay.
liked it. I was kind of iffy on that one. I liked it, but
I
I didn't
haven't
love
seen
it.
it. I haven't seen it.
I would have thought that.
I actually do love the Wolverine. I just didn't like the idea of an old rundown beat up
Well, that
Wolverine
was Logan. Yeah.
with an old rundown beat up Professor Xavier and
Yeah.
a I mean, hey,
But you
listen,
know, it is in line with the
sorry to all
comics.
those people out there that love the F-bomb, but I have a family, and so like the idea of watching a superhero movie that's loaded with F-bombs just kind of doesn't appeal to me as much. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I really do want to see Logan. Actually, I was just commenting on that like a week ago that I want to get around to seeing that because it's just something I haven't seen yet. But that's why I haven't seen it yet because like it wasn't what I like to think of as the X-Men, which are like everybody in their prime, fighting evil, working
Well, for what it's
together,
worth, yeah,
family-friendly language.
for what it's worth, Logan is based on the comics. Like that
Yeah,
did happen. There was
I've seen
comics
enough
of Old
scenes
Man
from it
Logan.
that I've seen enough scenes from it that I'm really impressed and I want to see it. I'll
Yeah.
just put it
I
that
didn't
way.
love it, and I'm
But
willing to
anyway,
say I didn't love
the
it, but I liked
topic
it.
is
He
this guy
also
that
wrote
wrote that
he
is
also
writing
wrote and
this
directed
Jedi
Indiana
thing.
Jones and the Dial of Destiny. He wrote and directed that. So it's questionable.
Mm,
Be afraid. Be very afraid. I didn't think Dial of Destiny was crap, but I didn't think it was wonderful either.
I didn't either, but it wasn't great either.
No. Yeah. So who knows? Maybe he's a big
So
Star Wars
there
fan.
he is, working his way up toward a big IP for Disney,
Hmm.
right? So so there all of a sudden I see the stairway that leads to him writing this movie about the birth of the Jedi is there, but it's disturbingly there because this isn't a guy that was writing for a comic book company that was producing Star Wars. This isn't a guy that wrote 3 Star Wars novels himself. This is a guy that wrote crap, okay, and then finally got his big break and got to write a big IP for Disney. Now he's a big IP writer at Disney, and they just sort of move him across the hallway, and now he's writing for Star Wars. He could be the biggest Star Wars fan in the world. This could be the most awesome thing ever made. So far from what you've discovered, I'm failing to get excited.
Yeah, I'm not going to say get excited over that. In fact, like I just said, I was not I liked the Dial of Destiny. I didn't love it. I don't really care to watch it again.
Yeah,
It was better than
that in
Kingdom of the
itself is a sad testimony,
Yeah,
though, because you and I are huge
Indiana
Indiana Jones
Jones fans.
fans,
Yeah,
right? And so for us to be like, meh,
yeah.
that's saying a lot. Like
It was
you
better
have to
than Kingdom
screw
of the
in.
Crystal Skull.
Was it really?
Yeah,
Was it?
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and I didn't hate that movie either, but I just
I
found it
like that
was
movie. I
see,
just think it was a little over the top, Steven
I think
Spielberg
Kingdom of the
aliens.
Crystal
That's all.
Skull was, yeah, it's just didn't strike me at all. I thought it was completely forgettable.
I think King of the
And
Crystal Skull would have been great if it hadn't ended in an actual UFO. If
yeah,
it had been like ancient people worshiping things they thought were aliens and everything sort of indicated that, but then ultimately it just turned out to be an ancient civilization with some ancient treasure. Like I feel like it would have been a lot better. And frankly, I don't know how much I want to die on this hill, but I think maybe it would have been better without Shia LaBeouf. I think for a while
oh
there,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Shia was like the guy that had to be in the middle of everything that Hollywood was doing, and that's how Hollywood works. Like
yeah.
when you sleep with the right person and schmooze with the right person and have the right cocktails at the right party, suddenly every single movie that comes out has got to have you in the leading role for 10
I'm not
years.
sure what really happened with him that all of a sudden everyone hated him. I never really cared. Like he was just
I don't
another
either.
guy, but for some
I don't
reason,
either. I
all of
just
a
feel like
sudden, yeah, all of a
the
sudden everyone
Hollywood
hated
it
him.
guy thrown in the middle of that movie, I think was just it was wedged, it was forced, it was like putting him in Transformers, and Transformers is a
Yeah,
big deal to me. But it was like, I don't know, he did an okay job, but it was just he was just wedged in there, and he was so silly that it sort of distracted from the main characters, which were the robots.
yeah,
So I don't know. I think Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull would have been better without him. But I
yeah,
didn't find it
yeah.
very forgettable. I thought it was a great Jones movie, with the exception that it actually ended in a real UFO taking off into the sky,
I
which
mean,
just,
Indiana Jones, like every single one of those movies, though, we find some kind of supernatural thing.
Yeah, that's
So
true. But the
and
full on gray aliens being the, progenitors of the human civilization and, taking off in a big spaceship, that's so unforgivably Spielbergian.
yeah,
I don't know. I think
it would have been better if it
uh
was E.T.
most people would agree with me because the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was not met with a whole lot of,
Yeah.
acclaim by the
I,
public. So
I thought that it was just not that good. I'm not saying it was a terrible movie. I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I enjoyed Dial of Destiny more. I thought the
okay,
action was more
okay,
interesting. I thought the
okay.
story was more interesting, but I don't think either one of them were great. They're nothing compared to Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah,
Like they don't
right.
even deserve to be called Indiana Jones movies next to Raiders of the Lost
And
Ark.
my favorite is what you'll probably be surprising because just like my reasoning for why I love Return of the Jedi the best, my favorite of the trilogy,
Is The Last Crusade? Oh,
Doom, is way crazy whacked
wait,
out
you
compared
you
to
got cut off.
Raiders.
You got cut off
Oh,
just as you said it. You said Temple of Doom.
yes, my
Yeah.
favorite Indiana Jones of the original trilogy is the Temple of Doom. And
Oh, the original
the
trilogy. Yeah.
reason why is the same reason I have for Return of the Jedi. It's not about the quality of the movie. We're talking about a fantasy. We're talking about
Mhm.
a fun comic book adventure. It's not about the quality of the acting, the quality of the flow or, whatever. It's about the fact that that Indy really gets to be a true blue hero in that movie and having him rescue the kids from the mines and come back and like he goes to this village and it's all blasted and when he comes back in the end it's all green and their crops are booming and he brings them back their artifact and he brings them back all their children and stuff. It's a great heroic ending
Mhm.
and for that reason the Temple of Doom has got my vote.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not. I mean, I think the only thing that's surprising is that it's my least favorite of the original trilogy. But it's
I
not
think
because
most
I
people
didn't
agree with
love
you.
it. But it's not because I didn't love it. I thought it was a fantastic movie. It's just that Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite movie of all time.
Oh
Like,
yeah, absolute
absolutely number
untouchable
one.
classic.
Yeah, and a lot of
Yeah.
people lately say that The Last Crusade is a better movie, and I think it's very damn close, but I still like Raiders of the Lost Ark more.
It's hard
Um,
for me to decide between the three, but my vote goes to Temple just because of the context and the craziness of it and the
yeah,
pacing of it. It's funny and
yeah.
John I think John Williams hits that soundtrack out of the
I
park with
think my
some
least
of the most memorable
I
Indiana
think
Jones music
I
there
think the
is.
Temple of Doom gets lowered in my opinion just because of the presence of Capshaw, who I think
Oh,
is like the
really?
single most annoying person I've ever seen since like
I don't even know
I
what
don't
you're talking about.
yeah I really don't like Kate Capshaw.
I don't see her as annoying at all. I've seen that movie 30 times and I've never even thought
I
about
still
her as
feel like her
being
she's
annoying.
to me Kate Capshaw is like Sherry Moon Zombie. The only reason she appears in that movie is because she's married to the director.
Oh,
Just like
yeah,
Sherry
that's
Moon
true.
Zombie. I don't think Sherry Moon Zombie is particularly good looking or particularly hot or particularly talented, but she's married to Rob Zombie, so he's got to put her in all of his movies.
Well, it
Uh,
could be true.
I mean,
But I
he
think
has to,
that
or she'll leave him.
I think I don't even remember her name, but I think the character in the movie in the Temple of
Willie,
Doom, I think she huh?
Willie,
Willie, yeah.
Willie Scott.
Willie Scott, yeah. I think her character is designed to be a counterpoint to the Marion in the first film and then the blonde in the third one because they're
Elsa.
both very independent. They're both very strong. They can
Yeah.
both pull a punch, and then Willie comes along and she's just this girly girl that's absolutely antithesis to everything that's going on in the course of the story.
Yeah.
Everything that she's not even a dynamic character that ends up toughening up toward the end. She starts as a girly girl, she ends as a girly girl, and it's such a counterpoint to Indy's manliness and to the just the filth and the dirtiness of the story. I always thought that it worked and never thought of her as annoying at all.
I can't stand her.
We are off subject.
Yeah, we're completely off subject. We said that we would be wrapping this up, and now we're talking about Indiana Jones.
It's all
Uh,
related, man. I swear it.
um, well, yeah, not for nothing. I did once see a fan fiction where Indy finds a relic of Han Solo's or something like that. I
You
don't
know
want to,
what? John
you know,
Williams did both the soundtrack to
yeah.
Temple of Doom and to The Last Jedi. Therefore, these are linked topics.
Yep, they're in the same world.
That's right. They're the same universe.
So
That's a whole nother
let's
subject.
yeah.
I argue that the Star Wars, the whole Star Wars universe is actually in our universe. Obviously, it's a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. That means if we had a vehicle, we could actually go there.
It's possible.
I
But
don't know how else
in
to
any
interpret
case,
it.
yeah, whatever. I mean, yeah, okay, but it's not for this talk.
Unless the Yuzong Vongs showed up eventually and blew the whole galaxy up, and now that the humanity has come along, it doesn't exist anymore. We
It was
should,
actually Darth Jar Jar.
if we had an intergalactic Darth Jar Jar, if we had a Stargate, Stargates could go from one galaxy to another. We could actually reach the Star Wars galaxy, and
Yeah,
then once
I
we're
mean,
there, we could grab a hyperdrive and go see anything.
there has always been, this talk that everything could be in one universe. There could be Star Wars happening in another galaxy far, far away from us and long ago. Star Trek could be in our short-term future, and Dune will be 10,000 years in the future. But
Well, all that may be true, but I think all universes in one is ridiculous because Marvel and DC cannot co-occupy the same universe.
well, true. But I'm just talking about sci-fi. Anyway, now we're really off topic. What are we going to
So,
do now? Talk about Time Cop?
that we could. Time
Yeah,
Cop
let's
was a
not.
great movie.
I actually haven't seen it in so long I barely remember it.
Was that
Uh,
Jean-Claude Van Damme? Here we are
yeah.
talking about it. So
So I guess we need to talk
Kylo
about
and Luke are fighting, and Kylo runs him through and finds out that he is not really
he's
there.
not actually there.
Interesting moment.
Yeah.
Interesting moment. A lot of people have a problem with this, with Luke projecting himself across the universe. I don't. I have
No,
a
me
problem
neither.
with it killing him, mainly probably because I don't want to see Luke die.
Yeah.
But it just seemed really sort of like almost a MacGuffin story mechanism to have this be Luke's final act and have it be such an exertion that it kills him. But it really is an interesting moment between him and Kylo, where we get to see Kylo be 100% ferocious without cutting Luke in half, which is
Mhm.
probably not the ending that anybody would have wanted for Luke.
Right, right. And I
It
don't
gets
know.
it gives us
Sorry.
a chance to see the two of them philosophically bantering with each other so they can get their point across without putting either of the characters in mortal jeopardy.
Yeah. And I don't know that I have a problem with Luke's like overexertion killing him, mainly because like it seems like a sacrifice Luke would make, especially considering what we know of the Force. That Obi-Wan said, "If you strike me down, I will become more powerful than you could
Yes.
ever possibly imagine." And
Yep.
now Luke is part of that.
Yeah.
So, giving himself to the Force at this point so that he can be part of that and making sure that things happen the way they're supposed to.
Well, like I said, if like I might be able to have a conversation about how having him kill himself in an exertion to have a final confrontation with his nephew was a dumb idea. I would actually just put all that on a shelf and say that I guess I don't like seeing Luke die because I don't like seeing Luke die. That's
Right,
all.
right. Yeah, that I can
In
understand.
fact, there's a finality to that, like there always is with death. You
Mhm.
when somebody you know or somebody you love dies, I think one of the things that's painful about that is just that, man, if he only had 10 more years, he could have
Yeah.
really whatever fill in the blank.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
so Luke became a recluse, and then he abandoned all of his friends and the entire galaxy and built nothing and accomplished nothing. And then he finally was able to get scared straight by his old buddy Yoda, and the result is he sacrifices his life to have one conversation with his nephew. Ooh, okay, so there's
Well,
my
he
problem
also
is
he
that Luke
also
didn't, huh?
well he also prevented he also provided a diversion while the
Right.
resistance escaped.
Yeah. I'm making light
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
out of a bigger deal. But like all I'm saying is that like I feel like once he died, it's like, oh, well, there goes any chance of Luke like redeeming himself. Like Luke did wrong. Luke did something wrong. You can justify it. You
Yeah.
could say, well, I would have done that too if I was him. All that's fair. But he did something wrong. He gave up. He lost hope. He disappeared. He abandoned his friends. He let the galaxy burn. And so once he came out of it, if the moment that Yoda was giggling about the final destruction of the original Jedi tomes, if that moment had come to full fruition, Luke would have woke up and go, "Yeah, what the hell's wrong with me? I need to fix this." And he would have got up and done the Luke thing, and he would have become the new hero, and he would have, maybe sacrificed himself in a much bigger blaze of glory and corrected the mistakes that he made, but he didn't, because he did provide a discretion. He did save his sister one last time, and then he did have a conversation with his nephew, and then he croaked, and that's the end of it. That okay, that's it for Luke. We don't get a chance to see him redeem himself. So I guess that's the explanation for why I don't like it.
Yeah, I understand. But I mean, I guess I understand it, and they had to get. I don't know. I have no idea.
I just want to state that that it sounds a little whiny, like I just didn't get my way. But I think when it comes to entertainment, every opinion everybody has about everything is some form of that. It is not my story. It's Disney's story. It's not my story. It's Ryan's story. You know what I mean? It's not my character. It's Mark's character. But as an audience member, I'm entitled to be like, I like that and I don't like that, and I think this is why and this is why, and that's it. That's it. That's as far as you can take it. Like, I'm not saying that they should have listened to me. I'm not saying that I have a better idea. I feel like I do, but that's just an opinion. And
Yeah.
I would actually commend that to you and to every single person listening right now, is that if you have an opinion about entertainment, it's just that. It's you have a legitimate right to your feelings, and those feelings have to do with the way you were raised and the way that you think of yourself as a person, and how much love you have for, in this case, Star Wars, for what you think Star Wars is about or what you think it should be about. You're entitled to all of those things. It's entertainment, man. But then, if somebody shits on a character that you happen to really look up to, maybe everybody doesn't look up to him that way. And then
Yeah.
when the person gets shit on, maybe it's something that half the audience is cheering for, but they really hurt you because you really looked up to that person. All of that is legitimate. It's when you start getting growly and insisting that your way is better and then vilifying others for feeling differently, that's when it becomes a problem.
And I'm going through that right now. Just like I've said many times, there's someone right now on Facebook, like earlier today, who says that I'm the bad guy because I like the sequels. And he says I'm coping. He's like, cope harder. I'm like, dude, I'm not coping. I have no problem with you liking other movies and not the sequels. Like, how is that
Yeah.
a cope? I'm just enjoying myself. I'm completely relaxed. Who's coping here?
Yeah,
He's
I don't
like
want to.
trying to tell me that I'm not allowed to like the sequel trilogy, but somehow I'm coping. That doesn't even make
Yeah,
sense.
I don't want to chase this down too hard, but I really feel like that's a learned behavior. That's
Yeah.
all. I think a lot of times, our keyboard warriors, including you and me, I think, we all hide behind the screen, we hide behind the keyboard, and for some reason we have this gut reaction to people that I believe is very much a learned behavior. And that behavior didn't exist 20 years ago, but it's been learned. Especially if you're under the age of, say, 20 or 25, then your entire life has been spent communicating online, hiding behind the screen, hiding behind the keyboard. And like all culture, including digital culture, there's a language and a mindset, and when you become a part of that language and mindset, you just sort of accept it and then you regurgitate it. And I mean no disrespect. I'm just saying that I think even a person who is regurgitating the culture that they've become saturated with may also realize that that is something that they do. It's something that I do right now. What are these weird sounds coming out of my mouth? Well, they're called the English language, and I was taught that, and I am regurgitating that. It is a thing that humans do. When it's neutral or pleasant, we call it culture. When it's negative and unpleasant and harmful, we don't like to call it culture, but it is, if that is the tenor of the culture. And so I'm not forgiving people for being that way. I'm just saying that I think when I hear you say that about someone that you experience online, I hear the person behind that troll. You're hearing the troll. And I'm not saying you don't see the person behind it. I'm saying think about that. There is a person behind that troll, and that person could be having a really bad day. That person could have had a really ugly big brother that thumped him all the time, or a father that was drunk every night. That person could have already been immersed in a Star Wars culture that's been venomously cruel to itself for 20 years and doesn't know any other way to express himself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. But I still am the whole point of this podcast flies in the
To
face of
counteract
what
that.
that guy is, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
is to say that you don't have to
Yeah.
do that.
Well,
So for anyone
and
listening, if you don't like The Last Jedi, I am okay with that. I am perfectly okay with that. I
I
understand
agree with you.
completely. Yeah, Vern agrees with you. I happen to like it. That doesn't make me the bad guy.
No, it's not you're not the bad guy. And
And
I think that in very careful attenuation with what the purpose of this podcast really is, that's the point that I'm making, is that all understanding, when it comes to disagreements to negotiation with other humans, it's always based on just that understanding. And so there's always more to the story than what you think. And when people are rude and snippy online, and they are fascist in their insistence that their opinion is all that matters, and anyone who disagrees is an enemy or somehow evil, there is a culture behind that, and there's an influence behind that. And I promise you, 90+% of the time, if you actually knew that person, if you were part of their life, part of their circle, if you worked at their job place or went to their school or were neighbors in their apartment, they would probably not be the same person that you are able to see briefly in a few comments on Facebook or whatever.
oh, possibly, yes. And I have said that's part of why I'm getting on Facebook less and less because I don't
Mm,
need to be inundated with that kind of negativity. I enjoy Star Wars, and I'm not going to let someone tell me I'm not allowed to.
yeah.
So rather than going on Facebook and being torn to pieces because I happen to like the sequels, like it's a federal offense, I just don't look at it. I don't care what they think because they're assholes. I like Star Wars. I like the sequels, and I'm going to continue to watch them. And anyone who doesn't like that can gnash their teeth and cry about it, but I'm still going to watch them, and I'm
Well,
going to sleep well that night.
well, you're not the enemy for liking the sequels. You
No,
might be the enemy for liking the Acolyte, but that's another
I'm
conversation that we'll
not
have
the enemy
someday.
for that either. I'm not the enemy for that either, and
Well,
and and you're
I
not
think
the
you
enemy
can
for not liking it.
I think you can agree, just in the sense of the sociological impact. I think you can agree that there's a lot more venomous and absolute opinions about the Acolyte than there is about the sequels. There are
Yeah, but I
many people
also
that
think
are torn on the sequels, but it seems like the Star Wars fandom is almost unified on the Acolyte.
no, I loved it, and I
I
think that
know,
the and I
and you're
think
not
that the
alone.
people who and I think that the people who hate it for the wrong reasons.
Well,
Not
and
all of them,
you're
not
entitled
all
to
of
that
them.
opinion
Yeah.
as much as they're entitled to theirs.
Yes, and I don't call them the villains. I'm saying I'm going to enjoy it, and nothing they say is going to change that. But I
But
think
they're
a lot of them are focusing on something that isn't an issue. But and not everyone. Some people have legitimate reasons for not liking it, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I have problems with the people who have very specific issues with it, and I'm not going to discuss it here because
probably
there's,
best.
yeah, but
But you need
there,
to be careful that you're not guilty of the same thing that they are, and that is presuming something that is happening inside their mind that they're not telling you. That's what they're presuming, that something is happening in your mind that you're not telling them, that they feel is encouraging Disney to put out more crap that they don't like, or whatever. Like we need to take our comments at face value and not try to be soothsayers and mind readers and guess what the other person is thinking and then vilify them for something that is only existing in our assumptions.
that is
We
true
all we all need to
until
do that.
until someone says something that goes against my moral compass. And
That's
then
right. And if that happens, then that is only applicable to that someone and not a stereotype that you apply
exactly.
to every single other person that has a similar opinion.
No, no, I'm not
It's
talking. Yeah,
really, really important.
yeah. Anyway,
So we've survived the
this was a
final attack.
really long discussion that we've had to have over
Well, and
multiple.
you're free to cut out whatever you want, but
Yeah, yeah, but
I think we've hit a lot of bases here. So
when we originally started, I wanted to tell the audience this as a means of as a way of explanation. When we started this, we said that our episodes or that when we talked about a movie, they weren't going to be more than 3 to 4 episodes long. But this is going to be more than that. I don't know how many episodes yet because I haven't edited it. but it's going to be long. And I apologize. I'm apologizing now, although to you who are hearing it, it's at the end of the whole thing. But that's because there was no way. This movie is huge for us because it is Vern's least favorite, and it's
This was a tough conversation for me. It really was. Like, this is the first Star Wars movie that we were meant to speak on that I wasn't looking forward to. And it's not because I disagree with Josh. It's because I just really don't like this movie so much that I kind of like roll my eyes and be like, why do I want to have a conversation about
I
this?
was actually not looking forward to it either. And part of that was because I didn't feel like I have the I don't feel like I'm persuasive enough to stand toe to toe with Vern and say my opinions without getting drowned out by his more eloquent speech. But hopefully I pulled it off.
Yeah, well, I'm a naturally forceful, loud personality, and it's never been my intention, including in this conversation, to confront Josh on anything. I'm not. I feel almost guilty sometimes for bowling over him because I have something that I'm trying to say, and I have a very loud, forceful way of saying it. But as far as eloquence goes, I don't know. I feel like it is. This isn't a battle of wits between Josh and I. This is a battle of two differing opinions about a single subject that doesn't matter in the ultimate scheme of things all that much. It's a
No,
movie.
and
But it is right at the center of what the podcast is supposed to be about, which is how to love Star Wars in different ways without becoming enemies. We are a fandom, and once upon a time, if you're older than 20 years old, you remember not too long ago when fandoms were unified, and now fandoms are divided. And I think being divided is not really the problem. It's when the division turns against itself that it becomes a serious problem. And the very thing that you end up latching onto because it brings you joy ends up becoming that brings you negativity and darkness and even violent thoughts and things that are unhealthy. So
well,
what
you can even see it.
if Star Wars suddenly becomes the wellspring of something that's negative in your life, what are we even paying attention to it for? It's probably best if we throw it away, like any other evil thing. It's probably best if we just dispensed with it and cleared our minds and took a deep breath and walked a different direction. So let's not turn Star Wars into something that hurts us.
I
Let's
mean,
let's
that's
keep it
exactly
where
what
it's
I've
supposed
been
to be.
saying about Facebook. Like, I joined these Star Wars groups on Facebook so that I could discuss something that I love with people who also love Star Wars. And instead, it turned into this constant fight because I like the sequels and how dare I? And and that's why I started not I'm not the only one, but a lot of people started referring to them as the fandom menace, um, because it's the fans. I've said before that the fans are what is ruining Star Wars, and I don't mean because they're making the movies bad and the movies are really good, but they can't see it. That's not what's making Star Wars bad. It's that the fans who are angry at people for liking what they don't like or for not liking what they do like, these people are bullies and they're making it so that I don't want to like Star Wars anymore. That's what's ruining Star Wars for me. Nothing Disney does is going to ruin it, but people making me not want to watch it, making me not want to be a part of it because I'd have to deal with them, that's ruining Star Wars for me.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. I very much sympathize with that. I admit one of the reasons why I haven't been all over the Star Wars fandom groups, spreading this podcast is because I'm not really part of very many Star Wars fandom groups anymore. I think I'm probably part of two or three at the most at this point because I can take a certain amount of negativity, but beyond a certain threshold, like I tend my social media like a garden. I go through it every single day, and I water the cabbages, and I nurture the tomatoes, and I pull up the roots, and I poison the gophers, and I don't I don't have any mixed emotions about which to do which to. And so every day I go through social media and I'm constantly blocking people. Not they don't have to threaten me with death for me to block them. If I get, one too many ideas that they're the kind of people that spread mischief and misinformation or just negativity and darkness, I'll just be like, you're blocked. It's no offense. go live your life, but you're living where is this? New Jersey? You live in Houston? Like we're never going to run into each other. The world has got 8 billion people in it that I'm not going to run into. Don't take offense to the fact that I'm blocking you. I just don't want you as a weed in my garden anymore. And
Hmm.
so unfortunately, that attitude and that philosophy has landed me with very few Star Wars fandoms to be a part of, because it's like, why do I need this negativity in my life? I don't want all this, crosstalk, especially not with me, but like I don't even want to like overhear this crosstalk between other people, that where people are just have daggers for each other and they hate each other, and it seems that they hate each other, and over this thing that I love. No, no.
Yeah.
I'd much rather retreat to my little bubble and pretend that the world is rosy and Star Wars is great and everybody who loves Star Wars is great. I don't need to be exposed to that. And I would I
Yeah.
would I would recommend to anybody listening that that's actually a healthy perspective to take.
Yeah. So
We'd be
I
negligent
we
to skip the final scene though in this movie. If we're gonna skip ahead, the escape of the Falcon and everything is really great, and the little crystal caves and everything. I love that. Obviously, this
Mhm.
planet is hollow. That's a whole thing that we didn't talk about. The planet's hollow. If we skip over that, there's one thing we definitely would be negligent to talk about, and that is the final scene with the kids under
Yeah.
the overpass and the broomstick. Like that,
Yeah. He
that
lifts
is
the broomstick with the
potentially
force.
a
Yep.
really cool moment that I had to like. That movie had me questioning in the theater whether Ryan knew what he was doing. But that final scene was very kind of, I don't know how to put it, Star Wars insightful. Like I thought that he was going for the idea that the Force was centralized once upon a time, which is why we had the Jedi. Special people were specially chosen by the invisible Force, and when they were discovered, they were taken away and they were trained. Okay, that makes heroes. That's great. But what I felt like Ryan was saying in that moment is that the Force has decided that the universe can't survive that way, and that it needs more heroes, and all living things are vessels of the Force. So now what we're going to start seeing is everyday people everywhere being empowered by the Force, which would give them a much better chance of being able to hold off evil before the heroes arrive on their cavalry and save the day. And there's something incredible about that idea that just wasn't explored at all in the third movie. And I
Right.
don't know really what we're supposed to make of that. That's what happens when you
It
have no
is
plan.
possible. It is possible that it will be in the upcoming, assuming it's still made, upcoming Rey and the New
It is
Jedi Order
possible, yeah.
movie.
And I honestly, I would vote for that. Like that.
Yeah.
That to me is an incredibly intriguing motion forward for the Star Wars universe.
And
That
for what
that
it's
the
worth,
the Force is actually a learning, growing mystic energy field, and that it learned the hard way over 1,000 years that selecting special people to make them heroes did not work. And so the new strategy is to just sort of subtly empower everybody. And these common Force users pop up everywhere, but they don't band together and create some special arrangement for themselves. They're just people. And when the bad guys show up, the people, quote unquote, are able to withstand that evil. And I just think that's a great thing to explore.
I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but for what it's worth, the name of the kid is Timiri Blag,
of course, he has a
Blagg.
name.
Yeah, Timiri Blag is the kid who wears the resistance ring that Rose gave him, and he's the one who summons the broom with the Force and then looks up at the stars. And that's how the
Yeah.
movie ends.
Yeah, I
So
love that
make
because
note of the name
he's an
because,
everyday dude. Yeah,
yeah,
make note of the name. Okay. Yeah.
maybe he will be a Jedi. I mean, maybe nothing's going to change. Maybe it's just certain people are Force sensitive, just like it's always been. But now Rey is going to train them, and we're going to have a new Jedi Order.
Yeah.
As she and Leia discussed, she says to Leia, "How do we build a rebellion from this?" And Leia says, "We have everything we need."
Yeah, well, and that's the beauty of the Force is that it's ubiquitous, it's universal, it's everywhere. You're never far from it. There's
Mhm.
something very, dare I say it, there's something very religious and powerful about that I think appeals to every single human being on Earth, whether you are, a believer or not. The idea that we're not alone, the idea that there is a consciousness, the idea that that consciousness knows what's going on, and at least wants balance, if not is driven toward goodness.
Well, it's at the
The
very
idea of
least.
balance alone at least assures us that evil is never going to rise up and overpower everything, because that's out of balance.
Well, at the very least, it's some kind of bacteria called midichlorians.
Well, you can make it small with the word bacteria, but the fact is it is an ever-present binding field of energy that binds the entire galaxy together. And whether you're in the middle of an asteroid field or in the middle of a jungle, you can sense it and you can
Yeah,
manipulate it. But especially
I
when
was
you're near
just.
living things. I love that. In fact, in all fairness, that is something I also loved about this Rian Johnson movie is the training moment. I didn't like the way that Rey was trained overall, but in the training moment when Luke is teaching her to meditate on the Force, and you see like the waves and the weeds growing up through the rocks, and like the cinematography of that sort of illustrating that the Force really is driven by living things.
Yeah,
That is a cool concept.
between the rock and the tree.
Yeah, what Yoda talks about in Empire Strikes Back, Ryan visually illustrates on this
Hmm.
rocky, craggy island in the middle of the ocean. It would have been
Everywhere.
really
Yeah.
cool when Yoda was saying what he was saying to Luke in Empire Strikes Back. It would have been really cool to cut away and show a lot of the squirming, writhing, growing, living things in Dagobah. In fact, I always felt like that's the reason why Yoda preferred Dagobah to hide in, because he is an acolyte of the Force. He is, you can even tell when he has a big movement of the Force, there's like a groan in his deep in the pit of his chest. There's a groan, like a satisfaction, almost like, if you forgive me, the feeling that you get right after sex. Like Yoda has this motion that flows through him, and he has this satisfaction of feeling the Force flow through him. So somebody like that would definitely want to encamp in a place that is exploding with life. And Luke even says it as he's entering the atmosphere in the X-wing. He goes, "There's massive life form
Massive.
readings."
Yeah.
Right. And so that makes sense. That so like Luke is hanging out on a rocky, craggy island where there's some life, but it's not exploding with life. But Ryan does capture that feeling of the Force being made by living things, and I just feel like that's something that hasn't been touched on enough, because what the Force really is, we thought it was this mystical religious idea, and then the sequels came along, or the prequels came along, and everybody made fun of the fact that, oh, it's just bacteria living in us. But I think neither one of those are fair. It isn't religious, it isn't invisible, it is a real thing, and it isn't bacteria. We don't know if metachlorians are
I know I
bacteria.
was
They could be
making fun of it, but
subatomic, they could be interdimensional life forms that express themselves through the subatomic world. We don't really know. That's a thing. Like, that's
yeah.
another thing Disney could have explored, is exactly what metachlorians are and what they do. But the
Or what they
reality
might
is,
or they might explore it in the
I
future.
think I think when the reason why they pulled away from all that is because the fan backlash was like, well, now you've explained the Force and it doesn't mean anything. Well, I think it just needed more explanation. That's all. Because I think we do have a mystical understanding between the Sith and the Jedi. We do have a very thorough mystical understanding of what the Force is. We just haven't had that explanation as an audience. And I think what it is and how we're supposed to think of it and how it is wielded is something that every Star Wars fan is sitting at the edge of their seat wanting to hear about.
Yeah.
Well, he touched on it here in the final scene with the kid and the broomstick. And also, I don't know if you noticed this, but when he picks up the broomstick is, I don't know if it's wood or metal, but it has a coating on it that's glossy. And when he picks it up and he gets it in his hand and he moves it ever so slightly, there's a light over him, and it glints off the handle of the broom and travels up the broom like the shimmer on a metal sword.
Hmm.
It's almost like it's a wooden broomstick that is harmless in the hands of a child, but it gives you a visual idea of being a lightsaber, because there's light dancing along the length of it because of the glossy, coating on it or whatever. Did you see that? Did you catch that?
I don't think so. I got to look at it
Watch it
again.
again.
Yeah.
Because it really excited me. I'm telling you, it wasn't my imagination. It was really exciting to me. The whole everyday kid, like, it's the Hobbit principle. The idea that the youngest and weakest among us can actually be the most powerful. It's really a question of faith. It's a
Hmm.
question of like how innocent you are, and how hardy you are. It's a question of where your moral compass is aimed. It's kind of like in Chronicles of Narnia, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when Lucy comes out and there's this giant army of, like, minotaurs and horrific beasts and things, and there's this little girl with a tiny little dagger that she pulls out. And all by itself, it's laughable because this kid has no power whatsoever. And then behind her, this 12-foot lion shows up. And it's like there's such a great picture of that where her confidence, not in herself, but in this force, quote unquote, that she is representing. This force is so overwhelmingly powerful that she doesn't have to be a muscle man. She doesn't have to have a submachine gun. She's just a little girl with a dagger, but she can stand against an army because she has something far, far more powerful on her side. And I feel like that's the essence of what the force is all about. So it feels like that's the direction that we need to take Star Wars in. I think that's what gives Star Wars its mystical and religious quality that goes way beyond the lasers and the spaceships and the technology and the pew pew and the cool sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, that's the movie. I don't want to
That's
cut you off or anything, but
nope. That's my end of the Last Jedi rant. I think that sums it up for me.
yeah. So I apologize again that there are so many parts to this episode, but it was such a huge thing. I'm going to try not to let that happen with The Rise of Skywalker, but we will be back next week to talk about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, another very divisive movie. So wonderful. I enjoyed it. I'm going to go on and say that right now. I'm sure
I liked Rise of Skywalker better than Last Jedi.
I actually like The Last Jedi more, but I still enjoyed The Rise of Skywalker. I like all the sequels. Anyway, so we're going to end it here. I really thank you for listening. If you haven't already done so, please hit like and subscribe. And as always, make tomorrow better than yesterday.